Buckle up, folks. This political showdown is heating up fast. Democrats are framing the fight over health care as a moral battle, while Trump and Republicans dig in on government spending cuts. But here's the catch. History shows Americans hate shutdowns, so who really risks losing here? Stick with us, because this one's got hospitals closing, jobs on the line, and the future of healthcare at stake. Let's dive in.
Joining us now is David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch and an MSNBC contributor. Basil Smikle is former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party and an MSNBC analyst. So 8 words, David. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care. Is that the slogan that's going to give Democrats an advantage over Trump and the Republicans, because this fight is looking to get messy?
Yeah, that's doubtful. Americans don't like government shutdowns. They think they're an illegitimate form of political combat. And all the messaging in the world usually doesn't solve for that. You know, I'd point you back to 2013 with the Republican-instigated Obamacare shutdown, where they were trying to defund the Affordable Care Act, which at the time was rather unpopular. In fact, it was extremely unpopular. But Americans still didn't like the idea of using the...
Notice how both guests are drawing on history here. Remember 2013? Republicans tried to hold the Affordable Care Act hostage with a shutdown. Americans rejected that strategy outright. So even if voters are skeptical about Democrats, the bigger question is this: will Trump's push for cuts backfire in the exact same way? Audience, what do you think? Should healthcare be the hill to die on politically?
The government, funding for the government and keeping the lights on as leverage for Democrats agreeing to push off one of their signature priorities that had passed through the legislative process. Americans just don't tend to understand why you can't fight for your priorities, propose legislation, and negotiate while keeping the government up and running.
So, Basil, look, YouGov polls, both in 2024 and this year, 2025, found a majority of Americans feel the Democratic Party does a better job of handling health care. We know people want their health care. They like their health care. Having said that, is there a risk in this?
No, I agree with David. Most Americans don't want a or don't like the idea of a shutdown, and a lot of this depends on the Democrats' ability to message it properly. But if you're going to pick this fight, I do think healthcare is the fight that the hill that you die on. And from this point of view, when you look at what's coming from Washington right now, the RFK Jr. has talked about changes in the way we think about autism, changes in the way we think about vaccines and administer vaccines. There's a lot of policy confusion around where to go next. When you couple that...
This is where the stakes get painfully real. We're not talking about abstract policy anymore. These are rural hospitals shutting down, nonprofit clinics laying off staff, and communities losing frontline care. Imagine living in a small town where the nearest ER is suddenly gone. That's not just politics, that's life or death. And Republicans risk owning that fallout if cuts go too far.
Can I take Tylenol?
Can I take Tylenol? When you couple that with the cuts that are coming from the administration with respect to Medicaid, changes in the Affordable Care Act, I think this is an issue that crosses party lines. So if you're going to fight this fight, I think healthcare is what you choose.
So, David, talking to Nicole Wallace, Jeffries also framed this battle as a moral imperative. Here that is.
We're not going to simply bend the knee to Donald Trump's will when he's gutting health care for everyday Americans and actively hurting people. That's immoral, and it's not something for us to participate in.
He lays out that this is happening in real time, that in California, at least 2 rural hospitals could soon shut down, with more of them at risk. In Boston, a nonprofit medical service provider for the homeless is laying off 25 workers. So is that the real threat here for Republicans if this stuff starts to unfold, I guess, simultaneously? Or how do Republicans respond if stuff like that starts happening?
Well, look, there are 2 different issues here, right? I mean, there are vulnerabilities that Republicans face on the issue of health care, and vulnerabilities that are going to come out of the, what is officially known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that reconciliation package that is going to impact how Americans receive health care and what they pay for it. That's the sort of thing that I think Democrats can fight and win on in the context of the 2026 midterm elections, at least, as things are framed and as things are framed now, and what we think is going to happen from a policy perspective over the next year plus. The question is whether or not shutting down the government is the right way to win on that issue politically. Because I'm not passing judgment here on what Democrats, feel is the moral thing to do. But if this unfolds like basically every other shutdown that we have seen going back to the late 90s, the party or president that instigates the shutdown as a means to extract a policy achievement ends up losing that debate with the American public. And then they end up folding. So if you're not going to bend, if you're going to frame this as not bending the knee to President Trump, and that's a message Democrats want to hear, and I totally understand that, I don't know what they're going to say in 2 to 4 to 6 weeks from now when they essentially bend the knee to Trump, because the Republicans are on the right side of the shutdown argument, even if they're on the wrong side of the health care argument.
Well, I guess the question is, if there's a shutdown, Basil, and whoever gets blamed, does it have legs? It's different now. We are in a different environment because so many things happen so quickly. But if there's a shutdown, if we see something in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, does it have the potential to impact the midterms, or is that just so far away?
Yeah, 1,000 things can happen between now and the midterms. But to the earlier points, as I said before, this really does depend on a Democrat's ability to message this properly. They're going to have a machine that goes out into these rural communities and really talk to voters about why this was actually necessary. Because
are they ready now? Are they ready to do that?
I hope so. To be honest with you, that's my concern. No, I didn't make it very definitive. No, that is my ultimate concern, because in the past, and Dave is right, in the past.
Here's the irony. Trump promised lower costs, less government waste, and a better deal for working families. Instead, tariffs are hurting farmers, energy bills are climbing, and healthcare cuts are biting into local communities. So the contradiction is glaring. Cut services, raise costs, and then claim victory? Does that sound like keeping promises to you?
And I think even Chuck Schumer has talked about this. They want to be able to make a stand, but they are concerned about that Democratic machine, that messaging machine, to be able to go out and actually talk to voters.
We are persisting. Our request to meet with the president is still out there.
Do Republican leaders on the Hill want that meeting to take place, though?
That's a good Chuck.
There's some reports that right now they don't.
Yeah, I still, look, the bottom line is there are reports they don't. And we did ask them, the reason we asked them for 2 months, Hakeem and I, to sit down and talk with us. That's what always happens.
Why won't they do that?
Well, we learned why. Donald Trump said ignore the Democrats. So I think this really comes from Trump. And they're afraid of him. We haven't seen them buck him. Even if you hear chatter in the gym or as members talk to each other that what Trump is doing is wrong and bad, they don't buck him. They don't buck him. And he thinks he's king. And you can't be king. And look, the American people are learning about this. The view of Trump is declining because costs are going up, not just healthcare costs. Your energy costs are going to go up because of what was in that BBB bill. If you take wind and solar off the grid, even if you believe in all of the above, you're going to raise electricity prices. The tariffs, they're killing people. I just had one of my colleagues out in Iowa. All the farmers could talk about was how the tariffs were killing them. So people are getting really upset with Donald Trump. And it's because of what he does. He rants. Yesterday he had a rant at the UN. He had a rant about why he wouldn't sit down with us. He doesn't deal with the issues. He's not being president. He's not up to the job. It's so, excuse me, it's so easy to just sit down and talk to us. And we know we're not going to get everything. But he's not even doing that. And the American people are going to say, WTF, why won't he do that? There's no good reason.
I don't know what that stands for, but... let me ask you this question. Regarding approval ratings, I asked Secretary Clinton the same question. I'll ask you. Why is it that the Democrats' approval rating is so low? You talk about Donald Trump, but of course, Democrats' approval rating as a party even lower than his.
Yes.
Why is it, like, for instance, with Hillary Clinton? I think she won the counties bordering Mexico and Texas by 60+ percentage points.
Yeah.
In 2016, Donald Trump in 2024 won those outright.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, people are upset in general. They don't like the Democrats, they don't like the Republicans, and they don't like Trump even more than they don't like the Democrats. But here's what's really interesting, Joe.
But the polls don't show that, though. That's my question to you.
Well, his numbers have gotten much, much worse. Today, there's a Ipsos Washington Post poll that shows, I think he's lower than he's been by a considerable amount, and it's going to keep getting lower as all of these, especially the high costs of living, he's helping cause.
So what do Democrats need to do? What went wrong?
Yep.
How did they lose some of their most loyal voters?
Right.
And what do they need to do to turn it around?
What we need to do to turn it around is show working families and everybody that we're on their side. And we are doing that, and we're going to continue to do that over the next several months. We have to keep hitting Trump, but we have to show we're on their side. And frankly, to win the elections, we have to recruit good candidates. I am optimistic about us actually taking back the Senate much more now than before, because really fine candidates are stepping up to the plate. And one more point on all those polls. Even though Democrats' numbers are low, when you ask people, who do you prefer, a Democratic senator or a Republican senator? We did it in the 6 battleground states, which were +2, +3 overall. So it's not a Democratic or independent survey. 47-39, they prefer Democrats. And in a couple of the races where we have the 2 candidates, we win. So the people want to see what Democrats will do for them if we get in, but they also are really leery and dubious of Trump and the Republicans who follow him even more so.
So what is the main message for Democrats? There's so many different criticisms that they could be taking on right now, from free speech to you name it.
Well,
but what's the message Democrats should focus on to bring it home?
The positive message is very simple. When I was growing up, you asked the average American, what is the next 10 years going to be like? And the average person would say, if I work hard, I'm going to be doing better 10 years from now than I'm doing today, and my kids will do still better than me. People don't say that now, particularly younger people. Why? High costs for groceries and everything else. We have a lot of food monopolies here that we have to go after. Second, housing. You can't afford a house. When my wife and I bought our first home, it was a co-op. The down payment was like 4%. It's now 25 or 30%. We have to do much more on that. So we have to get costs down. We have to deal with housing. We have to get better health care for people. Taking away the health care is politically very much the wrong thing to do. So we have to be really strong about a good future. We have to be really strong about how bad Trump is for people's future. Affordability. That's correct.
So, Leader Schumer, I want to follow up what Mika said about free speech. Obviously, we've been talking a lot this morning about Jimmy Kimmel's return to the airwaves last night.
He did a beautiful thing. He was measured, he was calm, but he was strong, and he didn't duck the issue one bit.
So here's where we land. Democrats are betting big that healthcare is the fight worth taking, while Trump leans on shutdown politics and tax cuts for the wealthy. The numbers show frustration on both sides, but the human cost, families losing doctors, hospitals shutting doors, could shape the 2026 midterms in a massive way. If you found this breakdown as eye-opening as we did, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more sharp, no-nonsense political analysis every week.